One of the questions most language learners ask is, what is the best way to learn a language? I've been watching students for the last 20 years and I've seen students who learn languages quickly and others who don't. And I've noticed some things that the best learners do. And I'm going to share some of those tips with you today in this video. Tip 1. Make it memorable. Think about what makes you remember things. Is it something a teacher said at school? Or was it a special occasion with family? Most people would say a special occasion with family because there's something different about it, something unusual. Do the same when you're learning grammar. Whenever you learn a piece of grammar for the first time, put that grammar into a situation that has something different about it. Perhaps something unusual. It could even be funny. Or perhaps even a ridiculous sentence. Anything that makes it memorable. Then, when you need to remember it, you will. Tip 2. Make it personal. Make it about you. Again, we are more likely to remember things that are to do with us than other things. For example, we can remember our birthdays many years back into our childhood because they're about us. So again, do the same when you're learning grammar. Make it about you. When you learn some grammar, straight away, use that grammar in a sentence or a speech that has you in it. Ask questions using that bit of grammar that are to do with your life. What have you been doing today? What are you doing tomorrow? What is interesting to you? And get that grammar into the answer. That way it makes it more about you, and again, it helps you to remember it. Tip 3. One step at a time. If you receive correction for something that you have written with lots and lots of corrections on it, this is not the best way to learn. The best way to learn is to focus on 2 or 3 things at any one time and do those really well. And don't worry about mistakes you are making on things that you have not learnt yet. Worry about the 2 or 3 things you're learning at the moment. Get those right and then move on to the next things. And bit by bit by bit by bit, your English grammar will improve. Tip 4. Make it real. Another important thing here is to make sure that you are listening or reading real live English. So for example, perhaps you could read a newspaper that is written in English but is focused on news events in your country. That will cover things that are real and important to you but using the English language. This will contain examples of language that do not fit organised structures. Grammar course books usually focus on the parts of language that we can organise, such as tenses or conditionals. But a lot of English cannot be organised. For example, the combinations of words that fit together. Why does one word follow another word? The endings of nouns and adjectives and verbs do not always have one pattern. Grammar books are not good at teaching this, so you need to be studying real life English to get all of the examples of how languages are used. Tip 5. Learn while doing. This is the most important tip of all. If you only follow one tip from this video, follow this one. Learn while doing. Why is this so important? Well, I've already mentioned it. Languages are not just to know, languages are to use. So if you learn while doing something with the language that you learn, you are training your brain not just to know language, but to use language. And therefore, you will be in a better position to remember the language you need at the time that you need it. So this is vital for you. Learn while doing. What could this look like? There are so many things you could do. Be creative. So as you're learning grammar, perhaps you could simply record yourself speaking using the grammar in that. Or you could write a diary every day, but make sure you get the English grammar you've learnt into that diary entry. Join a forum on the internet where you're discussing topics with other people in English and deliberately get that grammar into it. And the focus here is not to make no mistakes at all with English, but just to get practice of the language point that you are learning. Tip 6. Create immersion. What do I mean by immersion? Well, immersion is when you are in a situation where everything around you is English. Now, years ago, you had to go to an English-speaking country to do this. People would spend thousands of pounds, dollars, euros, whatever your currency is, to stay in an English-speaking country for a few weeks where everything is done in English and you have no choice but to use English. But now, because of the internet, you can create your own immersion. You can turn your phone's language into English. You can turn your car's language into English. You can watch English video on the internet. You can read English text for just about anything that there is. You can create a world where English is involved in everything that you do in your own time. This is a hard thing to do. So you need to be dedicated and motivated and prepared for it to take a long time before you can see the benefits. But it's an excellent thing to do and it does work, but you must keep going. Tip 7 is be your own tutor. What do I mean by this? I mean, when you record yourself speaking or when you write something in English, become your own tutor and try to find the errors yourself. Be critical, be analytical. Then repeat the task again and see if you can do better. An extra tip with this is don't try to correct your own mistakes immediately after you've produced English. The brain has a way of missing things it's very familiar with. It won't see mistakes if you look at something straight after producing it. Your brain predicts what should be there. The best thing here is to take a break, go and have a drink, come back to it later and then analyse it thoroughly then. Then you will see more of the mistakes. Now, tips 1 to 7 were all about learning English on your own. And they're good tips. But you can speed up your process of learning English by taking a course or joining classes. But there are some things you really should do if you follow this path. Tip 8. If you take a grammar course, make sure it's practical. Make sure the grammar course has lots of opportunities for practice and personalising your learning. Don't take a grammar course where it is just one person speaking to you and you can't do anything. Or don't take a course if you are just reading and nothing else. Make sure there are things for you to do where you can get involved in the learning. There are lots of great courses that do this, and we also have a course on our website, studyenglishplus.com. So go to our website and look at that course and see if that might be the right thing for you. Tip 9. If you take group lessons, make sure you know what group lessons are good for. Group lessons are good for creating an immersion experience and for peer learning. They are not so good if you simply want your mistakes corrected, because your tutor doesn't have the time to focus on everyone's individual errors. That doesn't mean a group lesson is a waste of money though. Group lessons give you an opportunity to be in a class of students who all speak English, who are all making English personal, and where you can practice a range of communication whilst having a teacher available to help you if you get stuck. And finally, tip 10. Probably the best way to make fast progress with English is finding an experienced private tutor. But when you find a private tutor, make sure you are doing more of the talking. Why is this? Again, because language learning involves doing. Take advantage of a private tutor by doing lots of language, by speaking lots, by writing lots, by asking the questions. Make sure you're in control of the discussion, because that way it will mean more to you and you get a chance to use the language more. Don't expect a private tutor to spend all their time explaining grammar points, correcting your writing, and not giving you the chance to do anything. And if your private tutor is doing that, perhaps they're not the right private tutor for you. On balance, if you have a one-to-one tuition session, you should be speaking more than the tutor. The tutor should be encouraging you to use language and prompting you where you go wrong, rather than taking over the sessions. And that way you'll get the best value for money from a private tutor. So let's recap. 1. Make it memorable. 2. Make it personal. 3. One step at a time. 4. Make it real. 5. Learn while doing. 6. Create immersion. 7. Be your own tutor. 8. If you're taking a grammar course, make sure it's practical. 9. If you're involved in group learning, make sure it's an immersion experience where you can share with others. And 10. If you have a one-to-one tutor, make sure it's centered on you, not them.